Hey everybody, what's up? Ehren here, Question Period Canada. Pretty excited to bring you a marathon. We're going to do a Senate marathon. Why not? Parliament is out until February and we have to watch something live, right? So what I was thinking would be fun, we have this new look.
For staying connected all day, every day.
We have this new look. We've got a couple of things that we'll be doing differently. Things will look a little bit different, but it should be a lot of fun. And we're going to jump straight into the first couple of hours right away. Seems appropriate. So here we go. Let's check it out. Let's see how these senators do it. They're mostly conservative and liberal senators. There's a couple of NDP senators. Some call themselves independent,
Senator
but they're
McNair.
definitely influenced by a party or a caucus. So
Madam
we'll see.
Speaker, honourable senators, I rise today to advise that earlier today in Fredericton, New Brunswick, the Honourable Brenda Murphy and the Institute of Public Administration of Canada recognized the recipient of the 2023 Lieutenant Governor's Award for Excellence in Public Administration in the province. The Lieutenant Governor's Award for Excellence was established in 2001 to recognize exceptional public servants who have made significant and lasting contributions to the public service. It is the highest award given in the province for excellence in public administration. I'm thrilled to advise you that this year's recipient for the award for excellence in public administration is Alan Roy. Alan has served in many roles throughout his career, most recently as the Chief Executive Officer of Service
Kind of a
New Brunswick
boring
since
start to a
2016.
marathon.
His senior management team highlighted in the nomination application multiple examples
Applause
of
for
Alan's
this guy.
exceptional traits, such as always putting people first, strong leadership and crisis management skills, ability to make personal connections throughout Service New Brunswick, a demonstrated belief in giving back to his organization and to his community, strong leadership throughout the COVID-19 pandemic when Service New Brunswick had to remain open for all New Brunswickers. With respect to Alan's leadership style, a direct quote from his nomination says it's best, quote, "Throughout his long and distinguished career in the public service, Alan has led with quiet humility. He is the first to take accountability in a crisis and quick to credit his team for any achievements or success," end of quote. His 40-plus year career has provided Alan with a solid perspective on public service and the ability to relate to Service New Brunswick employees at all levels of the organization. Having served in many different roles in his career, he understands the employees are the true subject matter experts of their own jobs and equips them to be leaders. Honourable Senators, please join me in both congratulating and recognizing Alan Roy for his outstanding record of 40-plus years of public service to New Brunswickers. I cannot think of anyone more deserving to receive this award.
Way to go,
Thank
Alan
you.
Roy. Congratulations. Good job. They're standing up for you. They're ovation. Nice. Canadian senators, they're like the lords of the manor. So that's a big deal for
Senator Martin.
Canada and the Republic of Korea share a remarkable history of cooperation built on the foundations of mutual respect, shared values, and a commitment to fostering prosperity and peace. On November 30th, this special relationship was highlighted in the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea, where South Korean legislators adopted a special resolution celebrating the 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations between our two countries. Canada has long been a partner in the success that is today's South Korea, from the Herculean efforts of individual Canadians such as Dr. Frank Schofield, who stood with Koreans in their independence movement from Japanese colonialism in 1919, and Dr. Oliver Avison, who spent over 4 decades spreading Western medical knowledge in Korea, to the sacrifices made by more than 26,000 Canadian heroes of the Korean War and the more than 7,000 who served in peacekeeping duties after the signing of the armistice. One of the cornerstones of our bilateral relationship is economic collaboration, both Canada and Korea are staunch advocates of free and fair trade, and our upgraded bilateral relationship to a comprehensive economic partnership in September 2022 stands as a testament to our commitment to creating a more open and interconnected global economy. This agreement has paved the way for increased trade and investment, benefiting businesses and consumers on both sides of the Pacific. Our collaboration in the technological and innovative sectors is another shining example of the strength of our partnership. Through joint research initiatives, academic exchanges, and collaboration between industries, Canada and Korea are driving innovation and contributing to the advancements of technology on the world stage. This not only fosters economic growth, but also strengthens the ties between our people. Cultural exchanges played a crucial role in bringing our nations even closer together. The appreciation for each other's rich cultural heritage has led to numerous cultural events, exchanges, and partnerships. From film festivals to art exhibitions, these initiatives deepen our understanding of one another, fostering a sense of friendship and camaraderie. This shared commitment will be further explored in 2024 to 2025 as the ROC, Republic of Korea, Canada Year of Cultural Exchanges. As we reflect on the achievements of our 60th anniversary bilateral relations, it is crucial to acknowledge the role that people-to-people ties have played in strengthening our bond. The vibrant national Korean-Canadian community across Canada and the warm welcome extended to Canadians in South Korea exemplified the enduring friendship between our nations. On behalf of the Canada-Korea Interparliamentary Friendship Group, as co-chair in the Senate, I express sincere thanks to the members of the Korea's National Assembly for the adoption of the special resolution to conclude the special milestone year.
Senator Lafreda.
Senator Lafreda. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Senators, the 18th of December is Human Rights Day. This year we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
48 that the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which set a comprehensive list of basic human rights to ensure that dignity, equality, and worth of all members of the human family. Article 1 reminds us that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. But I wish to draw your attention to Article 25. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care and necessary social services. With the holiday season fast approaching, we are reminded daily that not everyone is living in adequate conditions. Too often, we take for granted basic human rights like food and clothing. Let's help those that we can. Canada, as an industrialized and highly developed country, member of the G7, can and must do better to address poverty, inequality, and affordability. Despite these challenges, Canada is certainly in a privileged position compared to many other nations, which is why organizations like the World Bank are more important than ever. These global institutions, founded on the basis of helping end poverty in the poorest countries and boosting prosperity for all of humankind, seeks to help create sustainable economic growth, invest in people, and build resilience to shocks and threats that can roll back decades of progress. As the chair of the Canadian chapter of the Parliamentary Network of the World Bank,
I don't agree with
I am
much
committed to
that
working
he's
with our
saying.
fellow parliamentarians and our colleagues from around the world in advancing poverty reduction measures at the World Bank and the IMF so that everyone can enjoy the rights and freedoms set forth in the Declaration. Honourable Senators, this year's Human Rights Day theme is freedom, equality, and justice for all. May these three words guide us in our work as parliamentarians, today and every day, and may they inspire us as we will soon return to our regions for the holidays, to give back and to fight for these words to become a reality for all Canadians. Thank you. Merci.
I don't know. There was a lot of bull in his statement there.
Honourable Senators,
lot.
I'd like to draw your attention to the UNICEF report card number 18 on child poverty, released December 6th. I want to congratulate UNICEF Canada and partners for their ongoing partnership and advocacy. Colleagues, this is an important report, and it does give us some good news. In terms of child poverty reduction, up to 2021, Canada's child poverty rates have fallen substantially in recent years. In fact, only 6 of 39 high-income countries have done better than Canada in the past few years. Nevertheless, this report tells us that Canada's work to protect children from the scarring impacts of poverty is far from done. When we compare our child poverty rate to other OECD countries, Canada is not doing quite so well. Despite our progress, we currently rank 19th compared to 39 other OECD countries. That means, colleagues, that if we use the EU standard for measuring children's monetary deprivation, almost 18%, or more than 1 million children, are growing up in poverty. And for children in lone parent families, the poverty rate is higher, up to 40%. Compare this, colleagues, to the best performing countries who achieve child poverty rate of less than 10%, and set the bar for what is achievable. We also learned that from the report that Canada ranks 25th out of 38 countries in social protection investment for children, and that child poverty is beginning to rise again. It rose in 2021. Noting that the cost of living and that food bank usage have both risen significantly, and taking into account recent housing data, it seems likely that in 2023, the trend will have gotten worse. Ending child poverty in a wealthy nation like Canada is entirely feasible. Child poverty is a choice governments make. Improving the adequacy of the Canada Child Benefit, providing more inclusive and better paid parental leave are examples of two policies that would help us lower the rising rate of food insecurity and achieve better health and developmental outcomes for all children. This would also fulfill the commitment made more than 30 years ago to end child poverty. We are not short on ideas, colleagues, but we must be committed to the vision of a Canada where every child has the supports needed to achieve their full potential. Thank you. Merci, Miigwech.
Senator McFedrin.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, and thank you to my
So
distinguished colleagues
soft-spoken.
for this time. On the day we commemorate the Montreal massacre of young Quebecois engineering students, I received a letter from Efrat Reitan Marom, head of the Israel Knesset delegation to women political leaders, of which I am a member. She wrote, "On Saturday, October 7th, Hamas committed a massacre against Israel. During these attacks, Hamas terrorists kidnapped 240 people. 138 of them are still held in captivity: an infant, a young child, 20 women, 117 men, and 10 senior citizens. The accumulating testimonies from those that have returned from Hamas captivity paint a horrifying picture and make clear that the hostages are being held in harsh conditions. Eyewitnesses who survived the massacre of October 7th and first responders on the scenes described atrocious crimes against women perpetrated by Hamas terrorists, including savage rape, brutal sexual abuse, and genital mutilation. These accounts raise serious concerns regarding the situation of women who are still held by the same terrorists in captivity." M.K. Maram went on to write, "Any woman who remains silent, any international organization, any group that deals with human rights and does not do everything in its power to bring about the immediate release of the hostages is criminally negligent of its duty." End of quote. Finally, UN Women, which had spoken out about the very real plight of Palestinian women and girls, stated, "We believe a full investigation is essential so that perpetrators at all sides can be held accountable and justice can be served." For the first time in his term, Secretary General UN Guterres has invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter because the war in Gaza is threatening international peace and security. I wish I could be home this Thursday evening for the memorial to Winnipeg-born Vivian Silver, the tireless women's rights advocate who, as a founder of Women Wage Peace, dedicated her life to ending Israeli-Palestinian conflict and for women to be involved in any peace process. She was co-CEO of the Negev Institute for Strategies of Peace and Development, an Arab-Jewish organization, and a volunteer with Road to Recovery, driving Palestinians to Israeli hospitals. Her son Yonatan has said, "I hope that at least her death will be part of some new movement."
This is a tough one, man. Holy cow.
Colleagues, Human Rights Watch advises that since October 7th, one child in Gaza has been killed every 10 minutes since October 7th. Reuters reports that more than 17,000 have been killed in Gaza so far. This reality must shift. When will Canada call for a ceasefire?
Dépôt de documents, tabling of documents. Senator Laboucaine-Benson.
Honourable Senators, I have the honour to table in both official languages copies of an amended commission appointing the Right Honourable Richard Wagner as Deputy to the Governor-General and a commission appointing Mr. Kenneth McKillop as Deputy of the Governor-General.
Senator Laboucaine-Benson.
Honourable Senators, I have the honour to table in both official languages a charter statement prepared by the Minister of Justice in relation to Bill S-15.
The Minister of Justice is Arif Virani.
And Regulation of International and Interprovincial Trade Act.
I don't know what to say. You should see him speak.
Présentation ou dépôt de rapport
Whoa.
de comité. Presenting or tabling reports from committees. Senator Omeva.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable Senators, I have the honour to present the 18th report of the Standing Senate Committee on Social Care, Science and Technology, which deals with Bill S-244, an act to amend the Department of Employment and Social Development Act and the Employment Insurance Act.
I kind of want to show you a video like that I just made that includes him. And Virani is a special kind of
Senate Committee of
lawyer, I guess.
Science and Technology has the honor of presenting his 18th
He's the
report.
Attorney General of Canada as well, right?
An act to amend the Department of Employment and Social Development Act and the Employment Insurance Act, Employment Insurance Council, has, in obedience to the order of reference of June 13th, 2023, examined the said bill and now reports the same with the following amendment. Numéro 1, article 4.
Number 1, Clause 4.
When shall this report be taken into consideration? Senator Omeva.
Honourable Senators, I move that the report be placed on the orders of the day for consideration at the next sitting of the Senate.
L'honorable sénatrice Omeva.
It is moved by the Honourable Senator Omidvar, seconded by the Honourable Senator Clément, that the report be placed on the orders of the day for the consideration at the next sitting of the Senate. Is it your pleasure, Honourable Senators, to adopt the motion?
Senator Atulajan.
Honourable Senators, I have the honour to inform the Senate that pursuant to the order of reference adopted on March 3, 2022, and to the order adopted by the Senate on October 26, 2023, the Standing Senate Committee on Human Rights deposited with the Clerk of the Senate earlier today its 7th report interim entitled Anti-Black Racism, Sexism and Systemic Discrimination in the Canadian Human Rights Commission. And I move that the report be placed on the orders of the day for consideration at the next sitting.
L'honorable sénatrice Atulajan.
It is moved by the Honourable Senator Atalawajan, seconded by the Honourable Senator Marshall, that the report be placed on the orders of the day for consideration at the next sitting of the Senate. Is it your pleasure, Honourable Senators, to adopt this motion?
Of motions, préavis de motion du gouvernement. Sénatrice Laboucaine-Benson.
Honourable Senators, I give notice that at the next sitting of the Senate, I shall move that, notwithstanding any provision of the rules, previous order, or usual practice, 1, the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, December 13th, 2023, to consider the subject matter of Bill C-56, an act to amend the excise tax, Excise Tax Act, and the Competition Act. 2, the Committee of the Whole on the subject matter of Bill C-56 received the Honourable Chrystia Freeland and the Honourable Francois Philippe Champagne, each accompanied by one official, for a period of no more than 65 minutes, after which the committee rise. The witnesses' introductory remarks last a maximum total of 5 minutes, and if a senator does not use the entire period of 10 minutes for debate provided under Rule 12-32, bracket 3, bracket D,
Senator
including
problems,
the responses of the
sounds
witnesses,
like,
that
'cause
senator may yield
that's
the
not
balance
a
of time to
big
another
time
senator.
issue for Canadians, whatever clerical issue she's bringing up there.
Notices of inquiries, préavis d'interpellation du
Interesting,
gouvernement.
though. Everybody
Dépôt et
has
première
their
lecture de projet de loi
things
du
that
gouvernement. Introduction and
their
first reading of
pet
government
peeves.
bills. Honorable Senator.
Honourable Senators, a message has been received from the House of Commons with a Bill C-60 and entitled An Act for Granting to His Majesty Certain Sums of Money for the Federal Public Administration for the fiscal year ending March 31, 2024, for which it desires the consent of the Senate.
First reading of this bill, première lecture.
Madam
de ce projet de
Speaker
loi.
is a no-nonsense type of
When
speaker.
shall this bill be read a second time?
They need a little bit more of
Senator
this
Gold?
discipline in the Commons.
Honourable Senators, with
There's a
leave of the
balance.
Senate,
Well,
and
it
notwithstanding
just
Rule
got a little grease here.
5-61F, I move that this bill be placed on the orders of the day
Slick.
for second reading
This
at the
guy's
next
slick.
sitting of the Senate.
It's like mercury,
Is
man.
leave
You
granted,
can't
honourable senators?
touch it.
Leave is granted, and
He is like
accordingly, it is
mercury.
moved by
You
the
know, have you
Honourable
ever tried
Senator
to-
Gold,
have you ever
seconded
broken
by
a
the
thermometer
Honourable
and tried to
Senator
clean that
Levitin
up?
Benson, that this bill be placed on the orders of the day for second reading at the next sitting of the Senate. Is it your pleasure, honourable senators, to adopt the motion?
I bet you those glasses are worth more than my car.
Adopté. Introduction and first reading of Senate public bills. Dépôt et première lecture de projet de loi d'intérêt public du Sénat. Première lecture de projet de loi d'intérêt public des communes. First reading of common public bills. Reading of petitions for private bills. Lecture de pétitions pour des projets de loi d'intérêt privé. Dépôt et première lecture de projet de loi d'intérêt privé. Introduction and first reading of private bills. Tabling of reports from interparliamentary delegations. Dépôt de rapports de délégations interparlementaires. Préavis de motion, notices of motions, notices of inquiries, préavis d'interpellation, dépôt de pétitions, tabling of petitions. Question period, période de questions. Senator Platt.
Oh, it's going to get interesting now.
Leader, last week the Assembly of First Nations elected Cindy Woodhouse to be their new leader. She has been the regional chief for Manitoba for the last 3 years, and I send her my very best wishes.
Okay.
As she takes
I didn't
up
know
the
this, though,
responsibility.
and I've just got to
In her
disclose it.
first press conference as national chief, she was asked
I did a
if
live
she supports
commentary
a
on
judicial
this
review of the
question
carbon
period.
tax, which is being sought by the chiefs of Ontario. You may remember I raised that with UQP last week, Leader.
Donald
Her
Platt's
response
tough,
was
though.
Absolutely. She also said, and I quote, "From what I'm hearing, it's going to hurt people." Leader, what is your response to the national chief's words? Her words, Leader, not mine.
Senator Gold.
Well, thank you for your question. First, I join you, and I'm sure all members, in congratulating you on her election. And I know the Government of Canada looks forward to working with her in a fruitful way. The truth is that the price on pollution, as it actually operates in Canada, provides assistance to Canadians far more
Assistance.
than it hurts them. And so I
don't know about that.
There's a campaign of misinformation that continues to be promulgated on this debate, regardless of how many third-party experts say otherwise. We can't stop that. It's a free country. The fact is, the judicial review process will run its course, and the courts will adjudicate in due course. But the government remains committed to a price on pollution as its essential policy lever, the most cost-effective, efficient, and beneficial measure to combat climate change.
Senator Platt.
It's amazing how the only people that believe what you're saying is your incompetent government and Prime Minister.
He's sharp.
Leader, the new national chief isn't the only new leader who's spoken out against the carbon tax in recent days. The new Premier of the Northwest Territories, and I guess he also doesn't know what he's talking about, according to you, said on the weekend that he's hoping for a complete exemption for the territory. Premier R.J. Simpson also said, and I quote, "The costs are already high. Higher costs are not the solution up here." Leader, once again, these are not my words. They're the words of the Premier. What's your response to him, Leader?
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question. First of all, I never said, and would never say, either the chief or premier or any Canadian, quote, doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm calling out the opposition for a program of disinformation, misinformation.
Stammering a little bit.
Analysts within this country understand how the carbon price on pollution works, and the government remains committed to helping mitigate the impact on Canadians, as it continues to do, has done, and will continue to do.
Senator Martin.
Government Leader, Stephen Buffalo is a member of the Samson Cree Nation south of Edmonton and the President and CEO of Indian Resource Council of Canada. He recently commented on the impact of the Trudeau government's energy cap on Indigenous engagement, employment, and equity investment in our oil and gas sector. Quote, "Indigenous people demonstrated their entrepreneurial skills and their ability to invest in both community development and long-term wealth creation, keeping in mind both our present and future generations. The government seems willing to overturn our carefully won opportunities and prosperity without the courtesy of full conversation." End of quote. Leader, what is your response to Mr. Buffalo's words? Not mine, but his.
Senator Gold.
Thank you for your question. The government's plan to engage Canadians, stakeholders, Indigenous rights holders, provinces and territories on climate change is an ongoing one. This government has a comprehensive plan that it has many features, whether the most recently introduced cap on emissions, price on pollution, the rebates and incentives provided to Canadians to help them transition. Again, it is normal in a democracy for there to be differences of opinion as to what the best policy approach to combat this existential crisis is, a crisis that affects our well-being, our prosperity, and those of our subsequent generations. It remains the case that this government has a plan, a coherent plan, and it is the only plan on the table, at least in this chamber. The opposition does not have a plan, and it has not seen fit to even provide the beginning of a plan.
Can you imagine the statement he just made there? If you listen back, like go back it up 15 seconds, listen to him again.
Than the one with Indigenous
crazy.
peoples. However, Leader, it is my understanding that Mr. Buffalo and other leaders have repeatedly asked for a meeting with Minister Freeland to discuss the carbon tax, but she won't meet with them. Could you make inquiries and tell us if this is true? And if so, why has Minister Freeland refused this meeting?
Hear, hear.
Senator Gold.
There is ongoing engagement between rights holders and the Government of Canada at very many levels, and I'm delighted at the importance that you're attaching to Indigenous issues. I gather that you are independent then of the party in the other place that voted against so many measures to benefit Indigenous communities. I would like this chamber to be a little bit more sober and a little bit less free of double talk.
Sénatrice Méville-Deschênes.
Senator Méville-Deschênes. Senator Gold. The government has just announced a cap on GHG emissions by 2030. However, our oil and gas production is expected to increase during that period. How can this inconsistency be explained? It's the carbon capture mirage, the industry's miracle cure to continued business as usual. The International Energy Agency recently wrote that we must say goodbye to the illusion that carbon capture is a realistic solution. In fact, it was the Assistant Deputy Minister at the Department of the Environment, John Moffat, who summed it up the best. The big problem, he says, that we are hearing about is that it's a very expensive way to keep producing hydrocarbons. Sooner or later, the whole world has to stop using oil and gas. The problem is not a technical problem, but a moral hazard problem. Should we be resorting to this technology and continue to consume oil and gas? Senator Gold, why spend billions in public funds to continue producing the fossil fuels that we need to do away with as quickly as possible? Senator Gold, thank you. Senator Gold.
Thank you for the question. I feel a little like Goldilocks. One option's too hot, one is too cold, but the government will continue to adopt a scientific approach to climate change and to ensure a sustainable future. The government of Canada knows that the country has to continue using oil and gas, but that is why the government continues to adopt sustainable solutions and realistic solutions. And this is why we have put forward such a program. The GHG cap will make sure that Canada does its part to reduce emissions and will strengthen the competitivity of our sector against those around the world. Senator Miville-Deschênes. Senator Gold.
I disagree, John. I think he's strong. I just think that he's kind of a little bit rotten, a little bit like a really,
to capture
like a rat isn't weak. You know, like you kind of got to respect the game of the rat.
No one sees carbon capture as
I know what you mean, though. Like I'm with you there.
GHG from oil and gas. So why is Canada stubbornly investing billions of taxpayer dollars in a technology that is leading us to climate and economic dead end? Senator Gold. Thank you. I do accept that question, the first part of that question, with great respect. Every sector in Canada has been called upon to fight against climate change and build a safe future. And to reach that important goal, it's necessary to make investments in technology as well as in innovation.
That's right.
Canada will do its part alongside provincial and territorial industry partners to do its part to save the planet. Senator Lafreda. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Question is for the government representative in the Senate. In Budget 2023, the government committed to working with Visa
It was
and
really
MasterCard
creepy
to
the
lower
last
credit
time he
card
spoke, which
interchange
was just
fees
like
for small businesses
20 minutes ago.
on what we commonly refer to as swipe fees. Last week, Minister Valdez confirmed that a deal was made and explained that small business owners will be able to save $1 billion in the next 5 years because of this agreement. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business has been pushing for this measure for over a decade, but feels the agreement does not go far enough. Senator Gold, small businesses need relief now. So why are we, and why are these changes being delayed until the fall of 2024? Furthermore, how many businesses will be eligible for these changes? And what is the business size threshold to qualify?
Senator Gold.
Well, thank you for your question and for underlying this important
Thank you
initiative.
for your
Small
question.
businesses will qualify with each credit card network individually. Specifically, small businesses with annual Visa sales volume below $300,000 will qualify for the lower interchange fees from Visa, and those with annual MasterCard sales volume below $175,000 will qualify for the lower fees from MasterCard. My understanding, Senator, is that over 90% of all credit card accepting small businesses in Canada will benefit from reduced credit card fees of up to 27%, and that will help them save.
Do you
up to
believe
$1
credit
billion
card fees are going down by 27%?
Well, thank you for the answer. The agreement the government has reached with Visa and MasterCard.
He just
also
accepts the
includes
answer. Like,
free
what?
access to online fraud and cybersecurity resources, as many businesses have been increasing their presence online, and they may not all have the necessary capital, technology, and expertise to address major cyber breaches. Can you share with us some of the details of this portion of the agreement? What has Visa and MasterCard agreed to in terms of online fraud protection? Is there a limit to its support?
Senator Gold.
Well, I understand that Visa and MasterCard will be providing small businesses that qualify with free access to online fraud and cybersecurity resources, and that's in addition to the existing supports, such as the Canada Digital Adoption Program, which helps such enterprises boost their e-commerce presence and digitize how they run their businesses behind the scenes.
Sénateur Carignan.
Merci, Madame la
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the government leader. Leader, the Liberal government this morning announced not an agreement, but a program for dental care
I like this guy.
for all Canadians. But it seems that this program was announced before there had even been proper discussions or detailed agreements with the provinces. Of course, that raised the ire of the provinces. And as you know, in Quebec, there already is a dental care program. Jean-François Roberge, the Quebec minister, said, "Here is another example of the federal government that clearly cannot help itself from overstepping onto provincial jurisdiction." Leader, am I understanding that your government is going ahead with the new dental insurance program without signing an agreement with Quebec or other provinces? Senator Gold. This program was announced some time ago, and as you know, this is a first step, dear colleagues. As for today's announcements, it was very clear that this program will begin by delivering help to the most vulnerable, that is, young people under the age of 18 years of age and seniors, in situations where these individuals do not have insurance from their job or from their province. Therefore, these are federal funds from the government to ensure that 9 million Canadians will have access to dental care who do not currently have it, to ensure that they receive the care they need. Senator Carignan. I will repeat my question because listening to the answer, I said to myself that you didn't understand it. Did I understand that the announcement was made and a program was announced that oversteps into provincial jurisdiction without a prior agreement with Quebec and the provinces? And will this lead to another disagreement over where
This
the
guy
money
is
coming
easy
from?
to kind of make fun
Senator
of the way he
Gold.
stares and glares or whatever, and he's
No,
always in French.
I did understand
But his
the question.
questions are
And
very
here's the
direct.
answer. The government is moving forward with a properly announced program to help Canadians who do not have access through either a company that they might work for or through their province, including Quebec. It is not a matter of overstepping into provincial jurisdiction. It is a matter of the Canadian government doing what it can to help Canadians. Senator Plett.
Another former board member of Sustainable Development Technology Canada has admitted to providing tax dollars to a company in which he has a direct interest.
Oh my goodness.
No misinformation or disinformation, Senator Gold. He admitted it. In this case, it was two separate payments in 2020 and 2021, totaling over $393,000 a leader. It's getting real hard to keep track of all the corruption uncovered at this green slush fund. This is the third Liberal-appointed member who has admitted funneling taxpayers' dollars to companies they have a stake in. Leader, it looks like the Trudeau government gave zero oversight to this slush fund. How else do you explain such blatant corruption? As misinformation?
Senator Gold.
Well, thank you for your question. I think the minister has announced measures to address this situation. There's a review by an independent third-party law firm that will provide supports to the minister. It is unacceptable that any such program.
Oh, he's slick, though. Like, you got to respect. I don't say you got to like him. I'm not saying that, obviously. But imagine if somebody said your job was to be a liar.
Zero oversight. Or they knew what was happening at the slush fund and they were fine with it. It's one or the other, Senator Gold.
It's one or the other.
Conflict of interest and
I like
ethics
Donald Plett
commissioner
a
has
lot.
confirmed that he will be investigating this latest board member whose companies received almost $400,000. How many more investigations will be opened before Canadians learn the whole truth about this slush fund? How much more corruption will be uncovered, Leader.
Senator Gold.
You're making allegations
Yeah,
of corruption
right.
which
His
are
oil
not
slick.
established, but that the Ethics Commission will be
Yeah, he's greaseball.
investigating
You're right.
is totally appropriate and within his purview, and the government looks forward to the results of his investigation.
Senator Pate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for you, Senator Gold, and first of all, I want to start by expressing my condolences to you and all who have lost loved ones in the past months. Today is the global strike for Gaza. Yesterday was the International Day for Human Rights. Abuses committed by Hamas and other armed groups, including on October 7th, are war crimes and belong before the International Criminal Court. However egregious, though, they do not extinguish Palestinian humanity nor excuse Israel's extensive and long-standing violations of numerous international laws. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres calls Gaza a graveyard for children and points out that there is something clearly wrong in the way military operations are being done. As we heard from witnesses today at the Human Rights Committee, more than 30 Israeli and over 7,000 Palestinian children have died to date. What concrete actions is Canada taking to push for a ceasefire?
Senator Gold.
Well, thank you for your questions. Indeed, Hamas's terrorist attacks were deplorable. They were war crimes, in particular the sexual and gender-based violence against women, including rape, is just beyond the pale. Government of Canada is deeply concerned by the end of the humanitarian pause, the resumption of violence, and the human toll of this conflict, particularly on families, women, and children. Progress was made in releasing some hostages. Progress was made in expanding aid into Gaza, but much more was and is needed. Human lives that are caught up in this war are too precious to be simply reduced to numbers or the aid that Canada is giving. Canada continues to support the rights of Palestinians to live in peace and security, as they do the right of Israel to live in peace and security, all in accordance with international law.
Senator Pate.
Yes, and I thank you. And we all acknowledge the situation in Gaza is growing more dire by the hour. And UN experts, as well as a group of 800 genocide and international law scholars, have written and warned that if it is not already, it is now approaching genocide. When can we expect Canada to join the urgent calls of international human rights leaders for a ceasefire?
Senator Gold.
It is not the position of the Government of Canada that the actions that Israel is taking are genocide. And it is also not the position of Canada to call for a ceasefire. Canada has been at the forefront with the United States and its democratic allies in calling for humanitarian pauses, and as I said, deplores that they have come to an end, and it will continue to push forward so that proper assistance can be given to the residents of Gaza. They deserve it.
I care about the people that live in Gaza like so much, not like the people that live across the street. But what are we going to do about that area of the world?
Trans Mountain expansion.
I don't know if it matters.
In fact, the Prime Minister provided the opposite of certainty. Just 2 months after approving the project, he said of Alberta's oil sands, quote, "We need to phase them out." When the Trudeau government bought Trans Mountain with $4.5 billion from taxpayers, they promised there would be no fiscal hit to this purchase. The current cost estimate for building Trans Mountain is now just under $31 billion. Leader, how much will Trans Mountain cost taxpayers by the time it's in service?
Senator Gold.
The government's decision some many years ago to step in to ensure that the pipeline was built was a recognition of the complex situation that we face in this country, with provinces and indeed citizens relying upon sectors of our economy, fossil-producing sectors, as well as making sure that we can take the steps we need to reduce the environmental impact of burning fossil fuels and the environmental disasters that we saw so tragically in Lac Megantic when we transport fossil fuels and gas in less than ideal ways. The government does not intend to be a long-term owner of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. As you know, and we've talked about this over the years, there are parties interested, and the Government of Canada will continue to pursue that avenue.
Senator Martin.
Yes, I don't think you answered my question as to how much taxpayers expect to pay for this final beginning of services. But, Leader, the Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion Project is currently scheduled to be completed by the end of March, just a few months from now. Given that the regulator recently denied a variance on a section of the pipeline, will the Trudeau government meet its deadline, or will it see yet another delay?
Senator Gold.
Well, the government is committed to moving forward with it as best as it can. This project, like all such projects, as we know, encounters various challenges along the way, whether it's stakeholders, regulatory issues, and the like, but the government will continue to work with dispatch to reach the goal, the deadline that has been established.
Senator Platt.
Leader, Mr. Bob Pickard,
Here we
a
go.
Canadian who held a senior role in the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, appeared before a House committee this afternoon. He told the committee the president's office in this bank is dominated by senior Communist Party members. He said there is undue CCP influence in the everyday operations of the bank. On Canada, he said, our membership in this organization was not giving this country a single thing of tangible value that we could proudly explain to the people here in our country. Leader, this bank is another perfect example of why Prime Minister Trudeau is just not worth the cost, isn't it? Hundreds of millions for nothing of tangible value. Canada should have withdrawn long ago. Will you do so today, Leader?
Senator Gold.
No, I will not withdraw Canada from the Infrastructure Bank today. As I've mentioned on an earlier occasion in an earlier response to your question, there's no question but that our relationship with China has changed over the course of the years, and things have come to light in terms of the actions of China in the world and in Canada that are quite different from the assumptions that were made by previous governments, and indeed even this government when it first came into office. And as I believe the government has stated on previous occasions, there is a rethink going on in all aspects of our very complex relationships with China, and that will continue to be so in the days and months to come.
Senator Platt.
Speaking of not worth the cost, the Prime Minister's made-up rapporteur stepped down in June after submitting a final report to the Prime Minister that has been kept secret. By now, the Trudeau government should know the total amount of taxpayers' dollars it wasted while trying to hide what the Prime Minister knew about Beijing's interference. How much was spent in relation to the rapporteur, Leader, and how is this spending broken down?
Senator Gold.
Well, I do not have the answer for that, and I am so tempted to remind the Canadians who may be listening of the waste of money that was of taxpayers' money and the human cost for the dilatory tactics that were taking place most recently. But of course, I shan't do that. Simply to say that there is an investigation going on now with Justice Og, and the government looks forward to its continual progress.
Senator McFedrin.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. As per my statement, my question relates to what is going on
She's so
Gaza.
good with her iPad.
For too long, the sexualized gender-based crimes against Israelis, mostly women, had not been condemned by UN Women, but last Monday they spoke about the need for a full investigation so that perpetrators at all sides can be held accountable and justice can be served. Reports from Israel this week confirmed that fighting in Gaza is the most intense since the start of the Israeli ground offensive. Human Rights Watch notes that since October 7th, one child in Gaza has been killed every 10 minutes on average. We know that UN Secretary General Guterres has invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter, and that the death toll of Palestinians, mostly women and children, is climbing past 18,000. Out of concern for human civilization, when will Canada call for a ceasefire?
Senator Gold.
Again, thank you for your question. the toll of this war is tragic. Every human life is precious. Whatever your tradition, religious or otherwise, nobody deserves to be the victim of a war, much less the deliberate and brutal violence that you began your question by noting. Canada is working with its democratic allies, notably the United States, notably the European Union, to do what it can do to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza, to work with, in this case, Israel, to ensure that Israel is doing everything that it can do to minimize the inevitable collateral, that's a terrible word, inevitable damage that prosecuting a war in an area like Gaza is, and it will continue to do so because that's deeply part of what the Canadian position is.
Merci, Senator Gold.
Thank you, Senator Gold.
Senator McFedrin.
Thank you very much. Senator Gold.
I think she's NDP, Shar. I'm not sure, but the way
we know that you received directions
her
as to what you
message
can say
is
in
received, it
response.
feels
But
NDP.
is Canada considering alternatives to what is being called pauses? Can there not be some greater action taken on the part of
because the
Canada
Liberals don't
to
care
actually
about
bring
Gaza.
an end
Like, so
to
if
this
she was liberal, I
devastation
wouldn't think.
and go to the point of supporting negotiations for peace?
Senator Gold.
I represent the government, and so when I stand here, I do represent the government position, that which is different from.
And he's being defensive against her. So if she was liberal, that would be
Canada has
strange
always
to me.
supported peace in the Middle East. It has supported a two-state solution from day one. And day one, not day one. Well, yes, day one, quite frankly, when the state of Israel was founded. There was a two-state solution on the table that was rejected by all surrounding neighbors. They will continue to support that approach, even though right now, at least as far as Hamas is going, there is no interlocutor.
Merci,
for peace.
Senator Gold. Merci, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Gold.
Monsieur le Leader, ma question porte sur...
Mr. Leader, my question is on the federal government's projections regarding its workspaces in response to telework. Last October, I received answers from Public Services and Procurement Canada. They told me that at that time, the government was not compiling statistics on its employees' telework. However, on May 29th of last year, Paul Thompson, before a parliamentary committee, said that the government was planning to reduce up to 50% the units of office space that it has because of the increase of telework. But, Mr. Leader, does your government know what is happening in its departments? Is it aware of these inconsistencies?
He's a
and
weird
is
little guy,
planned
right?
to
But his
decrease
questions are
office space by
great.
50%? Senator Gold. Everyone is well aware that this change, not only in the government, but writ large, began well before the pandemic. The pandemic accelerated the changes. So the government acted cautiously and so as to support this cultural shift, which we're especially seeing in our young people, whose number one criterion for accepting a job in the federal government or in the private sector, and I'm speaking from experience here, is the following. Can I work at home at least half of the time? That is my answer. Senator Carignan. Mr. Leader, once again, I know what the trend is.
Got a funny way about him.
And all employers know how many individuals are doing telework that are under their employment, except in Canada. I received an answer to 2 written questions, and the Deputy Minister said the same thing here at the committee, so someone is lying. Who is it?
They don't use that word very often
Senator
in the
Gold.
Senate chamber, not very
Perhaps
often.
for you, the world is black and white, truth or lies, but that's not real life. In real life, there can be divergent opinions.
Listen to this. What a
Excuse
load,
me, I
hey?
will
Oh my
complete
God.
answer.
Shame on you,
Received
Mark
2
Goldman.
answers, and I'm very pleased that you got answers to your question.
Yeah, you cut yourself
Time
off
for
there.
question period has
His
expired.
conscience, I bet you his conscience is heavy.
Honourable Senators, we have now reached the end of question period and pursuant
Okay,
to order
so I don't know what's
adopted
going
by
on.
the Senate
It
December
said that
7th,
it was a
2023, and pursuant to
7-hour
Rule
feed that we were going to get,
9-6, the bells
but
will
now that this
ring
is
for
wrapping
15
up,
minutes to call in the senators for the taking of the deferred vote at 6.
so we're just crossing over here for a moment to wait and see what is next. Because it shows that they're, call in the senators. Oh, we're going again. We're right back to it, guys. Okay, well, perfectly bad timing on my behalf. So we're just trying to fast forward, as awkward as this is, because it said that there was 7 hours of straight. Well, isn't that something?
Agree murder for this shooting.
Look at this.
The orders of the day for second reading 2 days hence. Is
All
it your
right.
pleasure,
I
honourable
think we've got
senators,
it.
to adopt the motion?
Sorry, everyone. Sorry for the confusion.
Martin.
Yes, honourable senators, with leave of the Senate, I move that we resume debate on third reading of C-234.
Is leave granted? I hear a no. So ordered. Leave is not ordered, but leave is not granted. I'm sorry. Delayed answers. Réponse différée. Ordre du jour. Orders of the day. Senator Laboucaine-Benson.
Honourable Senators, pursuant to Rule 4-13(3), I'd like to inform the Senate that as we proceed with government business, the Senate will address items in the following order. Motion number 146.
Is that not
followed
just
by the
a
remaining
repeat of
items
what we
in the
saw
order
before,
that they
though?
appear on the order paper.
Government business, affaires du gouvernement.
No,
Motion,
this is
motion,
different.
number 146.
Senator Laboucaine-Benson.
Senators, I move the motion standing in my name.
It is moved by the Honourable Senator Laboucaine-Benson, seconded by the Honourable Senator Gold, that notwithstanding the order adopted by the Senate on September 21st, may I dispense? Are senators ready for the question? Is it your pleasure, Honourable Senators, to adopt the motion? Adopté, carried.
Bills to the reading of the lecture. Number 1, Bill S-13.
Stand.
Numéro 2, C-21.
Senator Carignan.
Senator Carignan. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Dear colleagues, I rise today to speak to Bill C-21, an act to amend the Firearms Act and certain other acts. As had already been highlighted, there are very few elements of the bill in its current form that deal with the reality of gun crime as it occurs in Canada today. The title that the government gave its press materials last year in describing Bill C-21 is as follows: a comprehensive strategy to combat gun violence and strengthen Canada's gun laws. End of quote. Colleagues, that's how the government refers to Bill C-21. Yet, when we study the text, we see that there is virtually nothing in its measures to crack down on gun crime. In Bill C-21, the government claims that by increasing the maximum sentence for firearms trafficking from 10 to 14 years, it is trying to address the low sentences often handed down by our courts. However, The data tells us that the courts don't even impose the current 10-year maximum sentence. In fact, virtually no firearms trafficking cases receive the most severe sentencing options. Last year, in his testimony to the House of Commons Committee on this bill, retired Detective Sergeant André Gélina of the Montreal Police Services said, and I quote, "It is also proposed that the maximum sentence for individuals convicted of firearms trafficking be increased from 10 to 14 years. While at first glance this may seem laudable, no accused has ever received the current maximum sentence of 10 years for this offense. This measure will have no real effect. It's another fine example of a measure that will be ineffective." End of quote. When Mr. Gélina appeared before our Standing Senate Committee on National Security and Defense, he again expressed the frustrations of police officers in this regard. These frustrations are shared by victims of crime and other police officers, not only retired police officers.
Sorry, I
but
used the
also
washroom.
chiefs and deputy chiefs of police who appeared before us. As an example, Vancouver Police Deputy Chief Fiona Wilson told our committee, and I quote, "With the exception of domestic violence and police shootings, where police officers are the victims, legitimate gun owners are generally not the perpetrators of shootings in the city of Vancouver. Without exception, these firearms do not belong to legitimate owners in the first place." End of quote. Furthermore, with regard to gun violence in Vancouver over the past year, Deputy Police Chief Wilson stated, and I quote, "To date in 2023, we've had 22 shooting incidents in Vancouver that have resulted in 3 deaths and 16 injuries. 15 of these 21 incidents are gang-related or are suspected of being gang-related." End of quote. Deputy Chief Bill 40 of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police appeared before our committee and mentioned the following. "It's important for our citizens to remember that in Canada, gun ownership is not a right, but a privilege. The law must strike an appropriate balance between the rights of the accused and those of victims, survivors, communities, and police and public safety to help mitigate the impact of the worst consequences of firearms." End of quote. Then Police Chief 40 of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police recommended, during his testimony, that sentencing judges be given the discretionary ability to increase parole ineligibility to 2/3 of a custodial sentence, where the court finds that an offender discharged a firearm in a place of assembly during the commission of the offense, and that this discretionary sentencing ability be extended to those found to be parties to such offenses. Honourable colleagues, the punishment for the offence of using a firearm in a public place must have teeth. It must produce results. And that's what so many police officers have been asking for. Every time we propose measures to strengthen the law, to incorporate mandatory minimum sentences for serious crimes, the government comes out with its argument, questioning the constitutionality of these measures. In committee, for example, Senator Cardozo made such comments when he asserted that mandatory minimum sentences required the use of the notwithstanding clause. But this broad assertion is simply inaccurate. In R.V. Lloyd, the Supreme Court of Canada stated, and I quote, "The legislator has no constitutional obligation to provide an exception to the application of a mandatory minimum sentence. Whether Parliament should provide a mechanism for overriding the imposition of a mandatory minimum sentence, and if so, what form that mechanism should take, is a matter of public policy and within the exclusive authority of Parliament." End of quote. The Supreme Court has confirmed this position in subsequent rulings. Earlier this year, the court upheld the 4-year mandatory minimum sentence for robbery with an unrestricted firearm. Indeed, in R.V. Hilbach, The court concluded, and I quote from the majority opinion, "The mandatory minimum sentence of 4 years for use of a non-restricted firearm in a robbery does not shock the conscience and is not so excessive as to offend standards of decency. Although the sentence is severe, the high threshold of gross disproportion is not reached." End of quote. Unfortunately, as a result of Bill C-5, which received royal assent on November 17, 2022, the government repealed this mandatory 4-year sentence for the use of a non-restricted firearm in a robbery. 2 months later, the court upheld the constitutionality of this sentence. Why didn't the government then try to reintroduce this penalty into the criminal code if it truly intended to better protect Canadians from gun crime? One wonders whether the government has read R.V. Hillback. The court concluded that this inherently dangerous offense terrorizes victims and is committed only by offenders who make the conscious choice to use a firearm to rob and endanger the safety of others.
The government is therefore defying common sense and jurisprudence by refusing to impose severe penalties for serious gun crimes, even though jurisprudence gives it considerable leeway. This brings me to an amendment I would like to propose today, which was first put to us in committee by the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. The amendment would create an additional provision in the law whereby death resulting from the discharge of a firearm in a place of assembly would be automatically considered first-degree murder under subsection 231(4) of the Criminal Code. Not only is the criminal use of firearms increasingly common in urban areas, but firearms are also sometimes discharged in public places with little or no regard for the impact on innocent bystanders. On Monday, November 27th, at the same time as the National Security, Defense, and Veterans Affairs Committee was hearing witnesses on Bill C-21, a shooting broke out in Gatineau in broad daylight in a public parking lot. In a video captured by a surveillance camera, a person in the parking lot can be seen holding out their arm as if he had a gun in his hand and pointing in the direction of a moving vehicle. The scene is immediately followed by 2 bursts of gunshot-like noise. A few yards away, children can be seen walking on the sidewalk. According to authorities, the shooting took place around 4:45 p.m. near Eddy Street. 2 men were wounded in the shooting. And this happened while we were studying C-21 in committee regarding discharge of a firearm in a public place. We have also seen many shootings, particularly in cities like Toronto and Montreal, where innocent bystanders have been killed or injured when gang members opened fire on their rivals without regard for the consequences.
Be right back, guys. Just grabbing a coffee.
Firmly to
Another
counter the sense of
decaf.
impunity
For me
these
and
criminals feel, as expressed by Chief Inspector David Bertrand of the Montreal Municipal Police Service in his testimony to the Senate Committee on C-5. He said, "What we want to work on is the perception that mandatory sentences are maintained. We want to work on the criminal's sense of impunity on 2 levels. The feeling of impunity is the certainty of being caught when you commit a crime and the certainty of suffering the consequences. Such reckless acts with firearms, especially when they cause death, should carry the harshest penalties, but often do not." End of quote. Take the case of Christopher Husbands, who opened fire in the food court of Toronto's Eaton Centre in 2012. He was originally convicted only of second-degree murder for this shooting, which killed 2 people and injured several others. He was originally sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 30 years. However, on appeal, he was granted a new trial and this time was convicted only of manslaughter. Although Christopher Husbands was resentenced to life imprisonment for manslaughter, the parole eligibility period was extended to 30 years. The eligibility period required for a manslaughter conviction made him eligible for early parole in 2021, which was only 9 years after the commission of his heinous crime. For the victims' families, this is simply abhorrent. I therefore wish to present an amendment as recommended by the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, which would ensure that any death resulting from a shooting in a public place would be considered first-degree murder. I think that it takes into account the reality that there are people who discharge their firearms very recklessly and carelessly. I therefore move that Bill C-21 not now be read a third time, but that it be amended on page 28 by adding, after line 24, the following. 13.01, Section 231 of the Act is amended by adding the following after subsection 6.2. 6.3, irrespective of whether a murder is planned and deliberate on the part of a person, murder is murder in the first degree when the death is caused by that person's discharge of a firearm at or into a public place as defined in Section 150. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
In amendment, it was moved by the Honourable Senator Carignan, seconded by the Honourable Senator Poirier, that Bill C-21 be not now read a third time, but that it be amended on page 28 by adding the following after line 20. Shall I dispense? On debate? Questions? Senator Carignan, acceptez-vous?
Senator Carignan, would you accept a question? You have 2 minutes remaining. Madam Speaker, I'm losing my voice, so I would prefer to save it. On debate.
Senator Lankin.
Yes, I'm entering on debate because I appreciate the voice condition you have, and I did have questions, and maybe somebody else who has worked with you on this might be able to, in speaking to this bill, respond to them. Of course, we've just heard this amendment, and I'm just reading it here. I need to put it in the context of the rest of the bill. But I want to understand the full... Yeah?
Could you move your sheet of paper from the mic? Thank you.
I can do that. Thank you. I want to ask the full impact of this amendment. I know from talking to some of your colleagues that they're in response to my questions about what some of the concerns are from your caucus about the bill, there were concerns about whether minimum sentences, for example, should be introduced into this, and a range of other things. This is slightly different. This is about what category of charge would be appropriate given the circumstances of the commission of the crime that you're talking about. And it's a very, despicable set of conditions that you have described, and so I understand why you are trying to address that. What I don't know is what, at the current time within the criminal code, what discretion is there for the prosecutors or the attorneys in there on behalf of justice to give thought and discretion to what the conditions were and the person, all the sorts of things that we think about when we think about discretion of judges in terms of sentencing. And so as people talk to this, that's one of the concerns that I would be interested in. I would want to know that people who were involved in committee through all of this process have taken a look at it and have understood. I don't know if it was introduced in committee or if this is brand new. But my concern is that prosecutors have a certain discretion along with the police about what charge is laid in certain cases. And I don't know if this limits them, and I don't know if it's been looked at what the problems or consequences of that would be. It sounds reasonable. It sounds reasonable, but I need to know that. And therefore, what that means with respect to any current provision of
what type of lady is this?
That might apply to this category.
I'm confused.
So I'm hoping that others who have worked with you or talked with you and who are in opposition to this bill would speak to that when they speak to your amendment And I'm sorry that your voice is not allowing you to answer that directly.
On debate, Senator Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And let me start by thanking Senator Carignan for his remarks and his work on the committee on Bill C-21. First, I'd like to say that, of course, I don't support the amendment, and I would ask colleagues to reject it, but maybe I could help answer some of the questions that Senator Lankin just raised in regards to the amendment. Section 231 of the Criminal Code, which this amendment looks to alter, deals with classification of murder. 6 sections of the code deal with sentencing rules surrounding first-degree murder and second-degree murder. It defines first-degree murder as being planned and deliberate, and second-degree murder as being an inverse murder which is not planned nor deliberate. It is important, honourable Senator colleagues, to note that anyone who commits murder, regardless of the degree of guilt of an indictable offence, will be sentenced to the same sentence, life imprisonment. The difference in sentencing between first-degree and second-degree murder is simply the degree of judicial discretion. Persons convicted of first-degree murder are sentenced to life and are eligible for parole for a maximum of 25 years. Persons convicted of second-degree murder are ineligible for parole for a period anywhere between 10 to 25 years set by the sentencing judge. A judge who has heard all the related testimony in a specific case and can make a learned judgment whether to set an offender's parole ineligibility based on the facts of the case. This amendment looks to amend the sentencing rules governing murder and will provide that any murder that occurs in a public place be treated as a first-degree murder, regardless if the murder was planned or undeliberate. It will, in effect, take away the discretion of trial judge who have the best sense of the facts and the clearest sense on appropriate punishment.
A lot of these senators must be close to the retirement age. Like, I think they have to retire by when they're 75.
It should be noted that this amendment looks to...
I still have a tough time telling how old people are.
231 of the Criminal Code. One that not envisioned by its draft.
How are you
this amendment
at judging people's ages?
Committed with a firearm to be treated more seriously than others. For instance, second-degree murder that are committed in a home and involve a firearm will be treated less seriously than second-degree murder that is committed in a public place with a firearm. Additionally, colleagues, Section 231 of the Criminal Code already provides numerous examples of when a murder must be considered a first-degree murder, regardless of it being intended or planned. These exceptions will always cause a murder to be treated as a first-degree murder. Example, a contract murder, murder of a peace officer, hijacking, sexual assault or kidnapping, criminal harassment, terrorism activity, intimidated and in the murder is caused for the benefit or at the discretion or in association with a criminal organization. These exceptions to the test as whether a murder is planned or deliberate are targeted to ensure that those people who commit the most heinous of offenses face the harshest sentence in the Canadian criminal justice system. The amendment that we have before us today is too broad, ignores that exceptions that are already included in the Criminal Code, and looks to take away the discretion once again from judges. I'd want to know why such an amendment is needed and what legal implication would be. Additionally, C-21 also includes numerous and other provisions that will strengthen existing criminal code provisions and provide police with new wiretapping authorization. This change will enable police to investigate firearms crime more effectively, including its links to organized crime. These changes are common sense and respond to the calls for reform from provincial partners. Importantly, C-21 also increased the maximum penalty for 5 different firearm offenses to 14 years, including offense that target firearms traffickers and smuggling. This is an important change, though it has been one that certain senators have criticized. In fact, however, the Supreme Court of Canada has recognized that when Parliament chooses to increase maximum penalty for existing offence, is also be taken as a signal to the courts that such offence should be taken more seriously, including by increasing the sentences range for persons convicted of these offences. Bill C-21 sends an unequivocal message that firearms trafficking and smuggling can be of utmost seriousness and should be treated accordingly by the courts. Those who have criticized these changes and those who believe in a so-called tough-on-crime response would have the public believe that the only way to forcefully respond to serious offending is through exactment of mandatory minimum penalties. This is false, and as a perspective, I strongly disagree. In saying this, I should not take to saying that mandatory minimum penalties are always inappropriate or that there is no place for such sentencing tools in criminal law. They can play a role in certain cases and can send a strong denunciatory message. I believe the government understands that as the sentencing reform included in Bill C-5, which this chamber not so long ago passed, that mandatory minimum penalties remain in place, including for firearms-related offences that involve organized crime. For example, at the same time, the government's recent sentencing reform recognized that there's more than one way to address serious crime. Bill C-21 and its proposed increase of maximum penalties is evident of that. In my view, those who advocate for mandatory minimum penalties are the only response of a serious crime, overly simplify the matters and give false sense of security. Being tough on crimes means being smart on crime, and mandatory minimum penalties applied to these offenses can be committed by various ways involving circumstance of varying seriousness. Are not smart on crime, and they can certainly not be tough on crime if they lead to litigation that result in them being struck down. Lengthy litigation delays justice for victims can cause them to lose confidence in the criminal justice system. Senators, in conclusion, we owe to the victims and indeed to all Canadians to be mindful of this when we consider criminal justice policy. I say again that this amendment that we have before us today is too broad, ignores the exception that are already included in the criminal code, look to once again take away from the discretion of judges in our legal system. I urge you, honourable senators, of course, to reject the amendment and, of course, pass C-21. Thank you.
That was quite a spiel
On debate,
quite
Senator
a long
Cotter.
statement.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had not intended to intervene in the debate.
You might, just a second. Okay.
Nobody cares about that first sentence, I don't think. I hadn't intended to intervene in the debate, and I have immense respect for Senator Carignon's thoughtfulness in relation to matters related to the criminal law, but I do want to raise two observations. One is, if the nature of this is to try to increase the mandatory minimum for certain quite serious crimes, it seems a bit unusual to do it by ratcheting up the nature of the offence, and particularly when one does that with respect to first-degree murder. The second point is a more general one, and here maybe in a slightly protective way related to the role and responsibilities of the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee of the Senate. We constantly face challenges at that committee. I don't want to use the word tinkering with the criminal code, but making individualized adjustments. It's a big enough challenge as it is to be comfortable that we are addressing those questions in an organized, logical, and coherent way. With respect to first-degree murder, the regime for essentially borrowing the concept of planned and deliberate, setting that aside and holding first-degree murder together for other types of offenses, particularly based on the victim, is a very fragile and carefully thought together framework. I don't even call it a regime, but a framework. And with the greatest respect, this is a problematic way of making amendments to and expanding the scope of first-degree murder without reflecting on that larger category. And as I think you will know, the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee was not mandated to work on this bill, and this is a matter, I think, that if it deserves consideration, it should be done independently and with a richer degree of thought. Thank you very much.
On debate or a question? Sorry.
A question.
A question. Senator Cotter, will you take a question?
Of course.
Thank you, Senator Cotter. I was reminded, as Senator Carignan was speaking and as I read the amendment, of the Martineau decision in 1990, which I remember because I, many years later, covered a case in which a judge, forgetting that Martineau
She looks
had
like
struck a
Bane
section
from
out of the criminal
Batman.
Code, attempted to convict somebody of second-degree murder with robbery being the predicate felony. And I'm wondering, since you are a constitutional law professor and I am not, if you could tell me whether you think that the court's reasoning in Martineau would perhaps render this amendment unconstitutional, because Martineau found that a person charged with murder must have formed the intent to commit that crime. And in this instance, this amendment, even if you didn't have the intent of committing first-degree murder, you would potentially be captured. And I'm wondering if you think the argumentation in Martineau would flow to be mirrored in this.
Speaking for myself, I think I'd need to think about that question a little bit more deeply. But what happens in the criminal code right now is that what is normally thought of as the requirement for somebody's life taken on the basis of a planned and deliberate performance by the accused person is
This guy is
circumvented in the
well-spoken,
language of the
like him
criminal
or
code
not,
for a specific
nothing else,
set of
just saying
offenses,
very, very
and
articulate.
nearly always focused on particular victims. Whether this one would fit comfortably within that regime or would be challenged, my guess is the kind of thing that would be challenged, raises, I think, uncertainty about it. And I think there's a really good argument to say that if you want to think about this as a category of first-degree murder, you need to think about the whole of those provisions that deal with first-degree murder and that circumvent the planned and deliberate requirement. And with the greatest respect, I don't think that's been explored well enough. It hasn't been explored
With the
in this
greatest
chamber well enough, I think,
respect,
for us to move forward.
Don't use
And,
that
you know,
term.
First-degree murder is people commit terrible acts. First-degree murder is one of the mechanisms by which we hold them most severely accountable, and that's perfect and legitimate, but we have to be satisfied that we put that in place for the right types of offenses, and I think it's premature to say that this is one. Thank you.
This guy is very well-spoken, though.
Senators, are senators ready for the question? En amendement, il est proposé par l'honorable.
In amendment, it is moved by the Honourable Senator Carignan that Bill C-21 be not now read a third time. May dispense.
Is it your pleasure, honourable senators, to adopt the motion? Yay. All those in favour, please say yay. Yay. All those against, nay. Yay.
How many times have you voted no in your life?
The nays have it.
Just saying, like always in those groups, it's always like,
agreement on a bill?
yay, no.
Defer the vote to the next sitting of the Senate.
Defer the vote to the next sitting of the Senate. So pursuant to Rule 910, the vote is deferred to 5:30 p.m. on the next day the Senate sits, with the bells to ring at 5:15 p.m.
Bills, second reading, projet de loi, deuxième lecture. Number 1, S15.
Stand.
Numéro 2, C.
Number 2, C-34, stand.
Committees other, rapport de comité autres. Number 7, first report, official languages.
Stand.
Numéro 9, neuvième rapport.
Number 9, ninth report, national finance, stand.
Fourth report, national security, defense, and veterans affairs.
Stand.
Numéro 11, septième rapport.
Number 11, seventh report, fisheries and oceans, stand.
Fifth report, transport and communications.
Stand.
Numéro 13, septième rapport.
Number 13, seventh report, bank, stand.
Foreign affairs and international trade.
Stand.
Numéro 15.
Number 15, fifth report, energy, environment, and natural resources, stand.
14th report, social
Okay,
affairs,
this is some
science,
pretty
and
boring
technology.
stuff going on right here.
Stand.
Numéro 17.
Number 17, 14th report, legal and constitutional
All right,
affairs,
well,
stand.
let's see if we can get something a little more interesting.
Stand.
Numéro 131.
Well, see what we can hook up right quick. Oh no, we're running out of show, guys. It said 7 hours, that they had 7 hours on CPAC, and so I was excited. And what I started doing was preparing to do a 7-hour marathon. I was like, I don't know what they've done. And then after I made all the arrangements to launch this, then I looked to see if it was 7 hours. I tried down, anyways. I figured out later on that it might not actually be 7 hours. So I'm not sure if this one runs out, which this video looks like the rest of it is the same as what we've been seeing, which is okay. So I think it's going to wrap up here. And if it does, we'll do a send-off, obviously. But I'm sorry to let people down if they thought it was going to be a 7-hour. I'm going to do a 7. I love this stuff. I could watch it forever, but like we can't watch music in the background and like exit proceedings for very long. And here, so that's over. Yeah. If they're showing that symbol, then it's over. But what I am interested in doing is making a quick video in the next couple hours to put out there to let people know how to sign the petition that's making so much noise. I signed it myself this morning, like just as a citizen, nothing to do with my channel or anything like that. But I think I'm going to make a video showing people how easy it is. And if you're interested, like, it might make sense to do that. We need a change. Like, I don't know that Poilievre's the better alternative. I would gamble that he is a better alternative than sticking with this government and this cabinet. Like, I don't trust the NDP party anymore. I'm not voting bloc. There's no Green Party or anything like that around here. There's no independents. Conservatives then. And couldn't get much worse. I'll take my chances with the chance that it could get worse with someone that has a different plan than someone that's been dragging me down, saying like, we're going in the right direction. And it's like, no, you're drowning me. And all the people that I live around and care about, or like, I'm like not a poor person, but I'm certainly not a wealthy one. I'm like lower middle class or upper lower class or something like that. And I just know that all the people that live in my community are struggling. Like they see the oil truck pull up, they shudder. I know that I do. Like it's just tough. And so you start paying attention and you realize that there is a corrupt government happening. And I won't get into that too much because I don't know anything, but it very much occurs to me that something sinister is happening. When I started to do this political stuff, it was mostly in jest, in play. Like I wanted to treat it like the WWE, but I'm no dum-dum. And so if I'm around it long enough, you're like, hey, that group of people is lying to that group of people. And this other group of people that are supposed to be dishonest seem to be asking the questions and do have plans that could maybe turn this around or make it less challenging than it is. Anyhow, I'm Ehren. This is the new look for our live show. We can snap back to the other one like that. Just let me know in the comments what you think. Try to change it up, bring it a little bit more old school because I'm old school. And we're just trying to have a good time while we learn about Canadian politics. Because they're not necessarily fun or funny. Moments of them obviously are. But we do take it seriously, and we are learning. We're going to get going and make this video about the petition and drop that hopefully by 9:30 or something. Thank you all for watching. Mubu, you're the best. I can't wait to buy you a beer. That'd be great. Or have one with you at Cheers. That'd be awesome. and a whole bunch of other people. Charlene, you're here all the time. I think I see you in the comments. I'm not sure if it's you or if it's a different handle. There's another person with the name Charlene I see in the comments, and they're really nice. And that's a weird thing about this community, which I would like to grow, is that people are nice. I expected when I got on YouTube that people would just say, like, shut up, you're stupid, you're ugly, like, and funny looking. That's not how it's been. There's been a little tiny bit of that. I don't care. I'm a grown man. I can handle that. I know what I look like. It's not good, but I can deal with that. And it's been so great in the comments because people are pulling in the same direction, which is change. There's something wrong with their current government. Something's up. Let's pay more attention. Let's get more people aware. And a couple of times in the beginning, there was some overt racism or whatever. Doesn't take long for me to flush those people out because, like, I don't care what you think, but you can't share all your thoughts, you know? So that's it. I'm Ehren. This is Question Period Canada. I love hanging out here. It's so much fun. And learning about this stuff, it's super important. It's our futures. I think I don't want to be eating bugs necessarily unless they're really, really inexpensive. Like, how cheap are they? Are they chocolate flavored? Can I get like lemon flavored bugs? Like and subscribe. Question Period Canada. Having a good time with Canadian politics as we learn. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next video. I'm not going to say sign the petition, but be aware that there is a big petition out there that is making a lot of noise. We're going to follow up with a video on that. Take care. I'll be back before Christmas, so there's none of that like Merry Christmas stuff yet, except to say season's greetings, happy holidays. We'll check you next